Well, we are still joined by at-large City Councilman Mark Scott. Also in the box with us now, Captain Mike Alanis of the CCPD. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
And we wanted to briefly finish up one topic with Councilman Scott on the budget before we get into issues with CCPD.
That's fine.
Going into the top of the hour break, we had made mention of financial services in the city, and going through the budget, if you go through it with a fine-tooth comb, as I did, all 772 pages of it, ad nauseum, you'll come across a page. It's a PowerPoint presentation for financial services, page 198. It says Pinnacle Issues for Fiscal Year 2015, and financial services says this: financial services is in a crisis. And it states, one second, here we are. It states, financial services is in a crisis situation in reference to attracting and retaining employees. We have lost 6 vital positions within the last 3 months, and with the existing position classifications and pay grades that are in place, we are unable to attract qualified candidates. Now, Councilman Scott, is this just an issue of the city needing to pay a higher salary so that way we can retain employees? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I'd forgotten about that, actually. It just so when you start by saying financial services in a crisis, you got to race to the next line, which is about ability to hire and retain key employees. It's not that the city itself is in a financial crisis. I've been part of that in the past. I talk about the time that I was in a closed session and city manager said it was a personnel issue. He says, look, I want you to know that I'm not sure, but I think we can make payroll. I thought, no one told me this was going south when I got in. Now we have, $20, $30 million in fund balance. Anyhow, so the issue here is financial services is, of course, extraordinarily important to running the machine, and we've been unable to hire and keep good employees. And so this is an opportunity for us just to recognize we've done all we can. We've done the searches. It's just not working. We look out and see what happens in competitive situations, and we think we need to pay more.
So you would agree that the city needs to maybe pony up a little more money to make it comparable to the private sector, something to that effect?
Yes, sir. And I don't know the details, although I will tell you we do some, like I told you earlier, I chair the audit committee, and we've done some audits of financial services and would agree that we need to improve some of the management over there. And so a lot of that's people business. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure you have good people in your financial services department because that's what makes sure you stay on the straight and narrow. Absolutely.
Well, we are also joined by Captain Mike Alanis of the Corpus Christi Police Department. Making headlines, of course, is the suspect in arraignment, Samuel Everett Toomey, age 63, who is, we'll say, accused.
Right, alleged.
Legally, alleged,
yeah,
yes.
Alleged.
Of shooting and fatally killing a boy in stable condition, or I believe that's the
latest.
Yes.
I talked to actually a family member called me yesterday, and we spoke around about 3 times on the phone, and she informed me that he was doing well, and he was actually in surgery around 3 o'clock yesterday, and even that night when we were out there, I was very optimistic that he was going to pull through and make it, so we were very happy. That's really the only silver lining, I guess, you could find out of this whole thing is that he survived, and unfortunately, it was a tragic day for Corpus Christi. We lost some citizens, and 3 at one time is not something that you want to see as an officer. And it was an unfortunate event out there, but we do have the suspect in custody, and now it's just an investigation that our detectives will continue to do. Our forensics team will do, and then work in coordination with SCRCA and the district attorney's office and try to present a case that's a pretty solid, so we can get
it all resolved.
Yeah, get it all resolved. Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing, looking through the article in the Caller Times, is that there are hints that somehow there might be perhaps an internal investigation of some sort, that perhaps the suspect, Mr. Toomey, and his lawyer are going to claim that there was some type of excessive force. I don't know if you've read the article or not. What do you have to say towards that?
I haven't read the entire article. We were called yesterday by the Caller Times for a quote regarding that. And like I explained to them, we were not or have not been made aware of any kind of a formal complaint or report regarding that. And if that's something that his attorney or the client Toomey wants to make, and he has that right, we as a department, took Toomey into custody. He initially came out and gave his hands up, but then when our officers went to try to put handcuffs on him, he resisted, and our officers responded to his resistance, and a scuffle ensued, and we used the force necessary to effect the arrest, and we did that. Officers did not know if he had a weapon, an additional weapon, or not, so they were not going to take chances with allowing Mr. Toomey to get away. So
now, according to the article, James Lawrence, his attorney, said that the police, quote, this is his quote, saying that severely beat, end quote, Toomey. He also says, from what I understand, as soon as they showed up, he laid down on the ground and put the weapon on a picnic table there or something, Lawrence said, yet they still beat him up.
All right. Well, Lawrence wasn't there. So the investigation will reveal what occurred. I know one of the officers that was there. I spoke to him earlier or yesterday afternoon late, and he was aware of what he read and saw in the newspaper and in the media reports. So it's just an internal affairs investigation that will occur if that's what his attorney wants, and we'll go from there.
Ultimately, it's going to be an uphill battle for his lawyer to make claims, as far as my personal opinion is concerned, because it's difficult to have sympathy towards someone who has just had weapon in hand,
right,
who's admitted to lay weapon on hand on said table,
right,
and, oh, hey, these guys may have roughed me up. It's difficult to have sympathy for the devil, so to speak, to quote an old song. But I don't really think it's going to amount to much, honestly, in my humble opinion. But, who am I? I'm just a citizen of the city. But obviously they are concerned because the picture in the paper does show some type of facial trauma. His eyes appear to be blackened, and at least one side of his face is severely rashed up, apparently. I don't know if that's blood or just simply some type of bruising. But I still think it's going to be an uphill battle for Mr. Toomey and his attorney to try and garner any sympathy, even though I know in the legal realm sympathy is not what they're looking for. They're looking for some type of evidence or proof. But
right. Well, and I think they're disregarding the investigation of a homicide of
exactly
3 people and a child that was shot. So let's focus.
Exactly.
Let's focus on that, and that's what our department is doing. So
excellent. Well, coming back from the break, we'll continue this conversation with Captain Mike Alanis, City Councilman Mark Scott, coming up after the break. News Radio 1360 KKTX, Lago in the morning. I am Marcus Gutierrez, filling in for the vacationing Jim Lago. We are still joined by City Councilman Mark Scott and Captain Mike Alanis of the Corpus Christi Police Department. Talking about a couple of things regarding news of the day, but talking with Captain Alanis during the break, I let him know that I went on a ride-along this past weekend, and I chose the south side, the Saratoga substation. I went from 9 in the evening to 2 a.m. from a Saturday night to a Sunday morning, and it was eye-opening. Mm-hmm. It was honestly, it was a very interesting and pleasant experience. Just being frank with you.
Okay. And
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It increased my respect for the police department. Kind of lowered my appreciation for some of the nightlife of Corpus Christi.
Okay.
But ultimately, it was overall a great experience. I would encourage every citizen to participate if you can pass a background check. I'll say that
exactly.
as well. But
we always welcome anyone who wants to do a ride along to call our office 886-28-2685. But yes, you do have to get through that background check. Because you're in a police car. You have there's a lot of we call it CJIS, criminal justice information that you'll see or could possibly see. So we have to make sure that you are allowed within one of our police cars and our police stations. So we do ask people if they want to.
And of course, everything you have to There is a confidentiality agreement.
Yes.
I couldn't just come on this microphone and start giving people's names of certain things or what happened. But overall, the officer I was with was outstanding. I don't know if I can give the officer's name.
Yeah, sure you can.
The officer's name was Officer Gabe Cantu.
Okay.
And he did an outstanding job. Very professional young man. I have the utmost respect for him and the work that he does. And it was quite enjoyable. It was quite enjoyable to see the level of professionalism that the CCPD exercises in the midst of aggression, in the midst of insults, is remarkable. I really think when I was looking at the budget preparing for Councilman Scott, I saw that the CCPD is going to be getting I believe it was a 4% pay increase, something to that extent, and I thought, man, it should be more. Just give them more money. I was happy to see that there was going to be some new squad cars heading out, a couple of Tahoes as well.
Right.
And so I'm a big fan of the Corpus Christi Police Department. They're doing great work, and I would encourage any and every citizen that is possible and able to go on a ride along, and you'll get an appreciation for your police department. They're not just out there trying to pick on you. They're out there trying to honestly protect and serve.
How many calls did you go on during that time?
During that time, I'm going to say approximately maybe 7 to 8, something like that.
And then those were dispatched. Was there, of course, if they're doing, that's a reactive. There was a proactive. Did y'all make some traffic stops, or did y'all?
For the most part, they were reacts.
Okay.
There were some calls that were called into the station, suspicious activities, suspicious vehicles, things of that nature. And so we went and investigated those. There was just a handful where it was lights and sirens, these types of things, where speed was accelerated, things of that nature. But for the most part, speaking to the officer, he said it was kind of a slow night. But for me, as a bystander, as just a common citizen, I thought, man, this is exciting. Everything's going on. But for him, he says, well, this is actually kind of a slow night. It had just rained and kind of dampened on some of the nightlife, so to speak, where there's activity.
Right.
And so, but overall, just a handful of calls, a few that were non-siren and a few that were.
Okay. And you picked a busy side of town. Y'all were talking about the south side. It continues to grow. Officers on that side of town can make anywhere. There was a young officer who one night came to me and said he made 34 calls in that night, and that is just a huge number of calls. And to do it professionally, and they do it every day. They come in, they put on the uniform, and they do their best for the citizens of Corpus. And a lot of times you are going to see Facebook comments and things like that come to us and say, hey, your officer was driving fast. I don't know why. Well, and that's just it. They don't know why. Our officers are going to calls, and you were in that car, so
exactly.
you know that when someone calls 911, they expect an officer to get there right away, and our officers try to do that as safe as they can and provide a service to our citizens. So I'm glad that you did that, and I welcome anyone who wants to see what our officers do to do a ride along.
The lesson of the night, and I joked to my wife and a few of my friends, because they asked me immediately after you go on the ride along, the first thing is, oh, how did it go? That's the first thing they want to know. And I looked at them, looked at them in the face, and I said, well, the lesson for the night was just don't drink and don't do drugs. It's amazing how much havoc you can bring into your life by simply saying, hey, why don't we go out and have a couple drinks and party it up a little bit? And from then on, it just seems to go downhill. Now, I know there's responsibility, but personally, just don't drink. Don't even delve into anything remotely close to drugs, and I guarantee you will be fine.
Right, and we won't have to be dispatched to exactly. contact you or anything like that. Now, how much time was spent administratively? Did you have to write a report while you were there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the reports, and I even asked a few of the officers, because when we made calls, multiple officers arrived, and there were certain officers questioning individuals there on the scene. There were others that were handling certain items of evidence that needed to be tagged, things of that nature. And so there were several officers that were using different computers and different methods of allocating and accruing charges of possessions to a certain degree and things of that nature. And honestly, it maybe took anywhere between maybe 15 to 20 minutes, maybe at length when there was multiple charges, maybe a half hour, something to that effect. But ultimately, I did ask several officers, I said, is the paperwork as much of a nightmare as you hear? because often you say, well, the police are always dragged down and they're just harassed and hassled and they have to do all this paperwork, and the majority of their time they're just there behind a desk having to do this obnoxious paperwork. And really, it seemed very streamlined, at least to me as an outsider looking in. The computer system seemed to be pretty straightforward. They were able to navigate very easily, able to get the report, to get all the facts down, tag the equipment, and transport any individuals that needed to be transported for detainment. So I thought I was impressed.
Okay. Well, and they have streamlined the process in the cars, and actually there was a class last week where they are going to change a little bit of the module inside the cars, and they were asking the officers what they wanted. Hey, what button do you want here? What would make it easier? Maybe the map, how to run a license plate, and things like that. So, they sought input from the officers in the field that are using the computers to try to make some of those changes. But if you can type pretty fast and you can get through that report, and you can press on to the next one. So, officers, you see an officer parked in the parking lot, it's not because he's just parked there waiting for a call. He's probably finishing up a report and waiting for the next one to come around. So, like I said, I appreciate your compliments, and I know that I'm very proud to be a police officer here. I'm very proud to be part of an organization that, like yourself, say that are professional, and oftentimes that's not maybe said often enough. But like I said, I ask anyone who wants to see a different side of the police department to do a ride-along. So,
and you can always give a call to the police department at what number?
886-2685, and there's a young lady there named Katie. She'll answer and get you hooked up.
Yeah, you can go to the third floor,
right?
Uniform Division, John Sartain, downtown Corpus Christi, and you can watch a video where they talk about safety, fill out some forms, and then you can go on a ride-along as well. We'll talk more with Captain Mike Alanis of the CCPD and Councilman Mark Scott when we return on Lago in the Morning. News Radio 1360 KKTX, Lago in the Morning. I am Marcus Gutierrez filling in for Jim Lago, who will be returning on Thursday morning. I know everyone's looking forward to that. City Council meeting tonight, or it's not tonight rather, but today, 11:30 at the Council chambers in City Hall. They'll be discussing various issues, the annexation of FM 2444, a couple of budget issues, and what else did we talk about? Oh, police officers are getting new cars, and so we're excited about that. Also joined by Captain of the CCPD, Mike Alanis, joining us in the box as well. We were discussing a couple issues regarding the police officers and the ride-along that I went upon. Now, I don't want to divulge too much information because, honestly, I'm afraid there's a police officer in the room, and I did sign a confidentiality agreement, so I don't want to, I don't know, maybe I'll plead the fifth, so to speak, but it was interesting to see because the level, I mean, I've talked about this before, and I made mention of this to you about the level of professionalism, but in order to understand, ladies and gentlemen, you have to see it live and in action. The police officers, in attempting to protect people from themselves and from others, take so much abuse, really, as far as I'm concerned, verbally, in some cases physically, and oftentimes don't get enough appreciation. So anyhow.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, and I think a lot of people don't see that, and it's good that you went on a ride-along, and like I said, I applaud anyone who's been on a ride-along. I've never heard anyone come to me and say, I did not enjoy my time in a ride-along. It's always a good time. And we'll take it one step further. For those young men and women who are out there who may want to seek a career as a police officer, right now we are currently taking applications for possibly 2 academies in 2015. So if you're at least 20 and a half, because you have to be 21 when you get certified, you can log into ccpolice.com. There's a little patch right in the middle of our page, and you can take a look at some of those qualifications. Would you like to be a police? I see you smiling over there. I see it running through your head like, wow, I could do this every night. You know? There's
the kid in me, would watch Spider-Man on the cartoons and be like, man, I could do that. And so when I see, officers going and doing their thing, I look and I say, man, no, I couldn't do that. I could do that. Yeah. No, but sometimes, when you see someone do it and they make it look effortlessly, you just think, oh, Yeah, I'd like to do that. But it's funny you should make mention of that. The officer I was with, when I first got in, he did all of his checks of his systems and booted up his computer, everything, got all of his equipment. And the first thing he asked me, he looked at me and said, "So did you sign up?" And I said, "Did I sign?" I said, "Well, I signed up for the ride-along. I don't know what you're talking about." And he says, "No, did you sign up for the academy?" And I said, "No." He says, "Oh," he says, "I'm sorry. Just a lot of people who take ride-alongs go to kind of dip their big toe in the water, so to speak, to kind of get an idea as to what's going on. They go on ride-along." So he kind of came into it with that presumption. And I said, no, I actually told him, I said, "I think I'm a little too skinny and a little too old." And he said, no, you'll be fine. You just have to be 21. And he's like, and I don't know what the age restrictions are as far as the academy is concerned or anything like that, but I definitely am too skinny. I know that. So
no, you can always bulk up, and they'll make you do a couple of push-ups and stuff, and get you ready. And it's all about not how big you are. It's just that you just have to have the confidence and the know-how. The law is on your side. And then you just enforce those laws. It is a career that. It could be a long career and a fulfilling career here in Corpus Christi. Like I said, I'm proud. I'm proud to be a member of the Corpus Christi Police Department, and I would surely encourage anyone who wants to take that step, to come see us, come talk to us, do a ride-along.
Now, during the break, we were talking off air about the types of calls that police officers receive, and you talked about a couple of domestic issues, a couple issues with parents and things of that nature, and how different times of the day, whenever your shift is on, and how those things will fluctuate. There'll be more, for example, public intoxication may be more towards the evening hours and things of that nature, but more family-related issues may be during daylight hours.
Right. Usually on the weekends when there are parents who are giving custody of their children to the father and or the mother, and they switch out on a Friday afternoon, our officers will get called for that. And there have been times when there will be 10, 20 calls that will be pending throughout the city for that, because they want to keep the peace. They want to make sure everything is going to go okay. So they want an officer there, and our officers will go out. And it's more of a civil matter, but we'd rather be there to make sure nothing occurs that could be a criminal matter. So our officers are dispatched to those things. And we talked off air here about our officers a lot of times are more counselors than anything else during their tour of duty, because they're just trying to keep the peace, and they're often called for, like I said, civil matters. And our officers go and try to take care of those things best they can.
Well, we do have a phone call, so we do want to welcome on Doug to Lago in the Morning. Welcome to the program, Doug.
Good morning. I've been on a ride along, and it is a eye-opening experience.
All right.
But the reason I called is, are you guys planning on getting cameras, body cameras?
Okay, well, we did talk about that. We currently have approximately 70 cameras, body cameras, that were made available to us. Some of those came to us on a grant from the district attorney's office. In order to outfit every single officer that works in patrol, we would need about 200 of those cameras, and they are not cheap. The ones that we use they were running about $800 a piece. Now, they have dropped due to the fact that they are making more body cameras now, and the one we use is it's called a V-View camera, and that is a plan of ours, and we'd surely like to have every single officer to have a body camera. And we encourage that, and the reason is oftentimes when a complaint may come in, we can easily look at the video, show the complainant that video, and can just squash things right there. At the same time, more so than anything, it'll be an evidence. We gather evidence from that video. If our officers are making arrests, and that not only do they're mic'd up from the car cam, and you talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
But there's a camera in the car. There's a camera in the back seat of the car. All the officers are mic'd up, and then if they had a body camera, and that would just be a second view of things that occur out there. So that is in our plan. It is a capital outlay of some funds that we currently don't have at this time, but it is in our plans, and we surely would love to have cameras for every single officer.
Quick second question.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure this goes through your purchasing of the city when you buy new vehicles, but do you guys ever contact like GM, Chrysler, or Ford and say, hey, look, we want to buy some new vehicles. Can we get some kind of a discount for you guys?
Well, we don't necessarily.
This is Councilman Scott. We purchase. We have an arrangement with the Galveston County intergovernmental entity. It's basically we bundle all of our purchases that get us significant discounts, and so we do look for opportunities to buy many of our capital projects through discounts.
Right, but not directly to GM. It'd be nice if Ford just said, "Hey, we're going to give you 200 Interceptors." That'd be great, but that doesn't happen like that. But thank you, sir.
I used to live in Dearborn, and the Dearborn Police Department used to get cars donated by Ford Motor Company. Well, in a couple of years, they were driving around in Lincolns and Thunderbirds. Well,
I was just in New York City here a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago, and they buy so many vehicles that Ford can't keep up with what they need, so they drive Ford, they drive Chevy Impalas. There was a couple of officers in Nissan Altimas and things like that. So here we are sticking with the Ford Interceptor, which is based on that Taurus model, and the Chevy Tahoe. So cool. we are moving forward with those.
I like the Tahoe. I call it the Christmas tree. Because they're so lit up. They're awesome. When I'm bike riding in the morning, you look up, that's a Tahoe.
There are a lot of lights, and I know Jim's talked about those lights. We are trying to work on those lights. We want to make sure that the officers are safe out there on the side of the street, but at the same time, we don't want to cause too much of a distraction. So we are working on those. But thank you very much for your question, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for calling the show, Doug. We appreciate that. We'll continue this conversation with Captain Mike Alanis of the CCPD and Councilman Mark Scott as Lago in the Morning continues on News Radio 1360 KKTX. News Radio 1360 KKTX, Lago in the Morning. I am Marcus Gutierrez filling in for the vacationing Jim Lago, and we have Captain Mike Alanis of the CCPD with us. And we've been talking about some developments within the police department, some issues that they've been dealing with. And we were talking about during the break some new police vehicles that are being purchased. I believe it was 31 that were allocated in the budget. Is that correct?
That's correct. 31. And those are going to be the Ford Interceptors. And I think what we need to say is please don't think that the city council and or the police department just say, hey, you know what? We want to buy 31 additional cars. These 31 cars are to replace police vehicles that are in the fleet right now that are being driven 24 hours a day that have over 100,000 miles. So they're replacement vehicles, and they're allocated every year.
And I think I was wrong, by the way, on that last caller. We looked it up. These cars are being purchased by some local dealers.
Right. On the 31 cars are going to come from Sames Ford. Yes.
I think the Tahoes, they said they were coming out of Caldwell, Texas.
Caldwell County. Yeah. The Tahoes are hard to get. Police vehicles are hard to get at one time because departments throughout the nation, the Ford Crown Victoria is no longer being made. So Ford went to the Interceptor. So all these cars that are being changed out, well, everyone needs new cars. Departments across the country need new cars. So at times it's very difficult to get police cars. So when we come across 31, when a dealership gets a large lot of police cars, oftentimes other counties or the police departments start picking from that. So for us to get 31 at one time is a good deal, and thanks to the city council and the citizens for supporting that. And like I said, that's to replace older vehicles in our fleet that have over 120,000 miles on them.
Now, dealing with some things that were talked about on a more national level, but domestic violence, particularly with the NFL bringing light to that issue. I know that several police officers, I'm not going to say a majority of their calls, but they have several calls regarding domestic violence. We've seen Ray Rice and that issue with the elevator video. Mm-hmm. We hear Greg Hardy in the NFL, it doesn't have a video. If it had a video, I'm sure we would be talking about Greg Hardy. But the domestic violence appears to be at the forefront of people's minds right now. And as an officer, what would you have to say, or what advice could you give people maybe in a domestic violence type of situation in a relationship or things like that?
We have counselors at our police department, and officers, when they go out and they make these calls that have anything to do with domestic violence are they give out leaflets or of information to the victims and or both. Oftentimes people think it's just the male, but oftentimes it can be a male can be a victim. So they're given information. We have some counselors within our police department that anyone can reach out to get help. And I think that is the biggest struggle for someone who's involved in a domestic violence relationship, is trying to make that one step to say, you know what, I'm done in this relationship and I need to move out of it and I need some help. And if you need some help, we do have it there at the police department.
The fascinating thing about that Ray Rice situation video is she ended up marrying him. That happened when they were just dating, and there's a whole conversation around that. You read about that, and he's alleged, then they blah blah blah, and then they get married. Then you see the video and say, God, that human being who was beaten by him married him after that.
Exactly. And, when you look at the issue with domestic violence, it's a horrible situation. And the first step, as Captain Alanis was saying, is to say, you know what, this doesn't need to go any further. I need to take that first step. I need to take that initiative and get out of it. I need to let someone know. I need to let family know. Or I need to let the authorities know what's going on and get out of the situation.
Right. It's a cycle. It'll continue. And if you're in a domestic violence relationship and you've been assaulted, one time, it'll happen again. You may hear the words, I won't do it again, I'm sorry. But come a couple of weeks or days down the road when something else happens, you could be a victim once again. So we have worked with some local agencies here, counseling agencies. We've had meetings, several coalitions here within our city to try to reach out to help and combat domestic violence. Because oftentimes, and we did a study, I think it was last year, where we were talking about aggravated assaults where someone gets shot, and they live, and or homicides. And it's usually the people that commit those crimes. You become a victim. And a lot of it stemmed from domestic violence. So we got together with some of the groups and reached out and tried to reach out. And we can't be in every house at all times. So it's you can reach out to us if you need some help and make that first move. Like I said, we have counselors there, very good team, and you can dial 886-2600 and just ask for family violence, and they will direct you. And you can come in. It's confidential. You can come in and talk to one of those counselors there and seek some assistance. Yeah, the first step is always just acknowledging that there is that problem and that it needs to be stopped. Oftentimes in these situations, even looking at these prominent ones in the media right now regarding these NFL players, you'll see women and even somewhat sympathizers and fans of these NFL players saying things like, "Oh well, she hit him," so she I guess almost justifying the fact that he knocked a woman out in an elevator. But ultimately, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame, and oftentimes a lot of self-deprecation on the victims. They believe that somehow they did something that deserved that reaction, but that's not the case. And the first step that they need to take is to realize, look, this was not my fault. This is someone who's violent. This is someone who has violent tendencies. No relationship is worth tolerating any type of activity, even remotely close to that. And they need to notify, like we said, family, notify the authorities, get out of the situation, and make sure that it gets nipped in the bud before it escalates. And next thing you know, there's been a horrible tragedy on your hands. Right. Now, when I talked about the study that we did last year, was a victimology that we put together based on the cases. And the victim-offender relationship in a homicide, 81% of the time it's either an acquaintance or a domestic dispute. Only 18% was it a stranger. So, you know the people that commit the crimes against you. Well, City Council meeting today at 11:30. I'd like to thank our guests, Councilman Mark Scott and Captain Mike Alanis of the CCPD. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Chad McGill, District 2, running for at-large position, Dr. Keith Rose, and also an interview with Lieutenant Colonel Wesley Reed, Democrat for U.S. Congress. Have yourself a Bluebell Country morning.